Hi everyone, it's Vicky. I hope you're well. So this is the video to show you what I did with the rest of the turnabouts that were in the hop that I did for Valentine's Day, and that came out on the 1st. So if you haven't watched that yet, do go back because I show you how I created these backgrounds using the Concord and 9th Scattered Hearts turnabout. So the first one I'm going to use is this lovely pink and purple one. For this, I'm also going to be using the Gina K Wreath Builder. This is the original one, and I'm just taking a sentiment out from here and also one of the little circles as well. Now, as you'll see, it is quite a bright background, and if I just try to stamp that image and sentiment onto there, it'd probably get lost. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking some white pigment ink, any white pigment ink is absolutely fine, and I'm just putting that quite liberally in the middle where I'm going to be wanting to put my sentiment, and then I am just blending that out slightly just so it fades out. So as you can see, it's kind of muting the tones, but you can still see the actual image behind it. So I'm just going to keep blending that out until I get it light enough so that I know that my sentiment will still stand out on there. So just bear with me while I do that. And what I'm also going to do is, once I've got it to a shading that I like, I am going to quickly set that with my heat gun just off camera, because the last thing I want is for it to not be quite dry. Pigment ink does take a little while to dry and I don't want to stamp over wet ink. So I'm going to use my Misty just to get this all lined up. And there is the sentiment that I've picked. So I'm going to pop that down there. And then I'll have to do the circle afterwards. So I'm just using some archival ink. This stamps quite nicely over the pigment ink I have discovered. So I'm just going to give that a good press down. And obviously by using my Misty, I can give it a couple of goes just to make sure that it's as dark as I would like it to be. And then I'm going to clean down that stamp, and I'm going to use one of the circles just to highlight it, just so it stands out that little bit more. So bear with me, I'm just going to clean that off. I just use a little alcohol wipe, and then I'll also use some water and a cloth as well just to get it all off. But I just want to give it a quick clean off because the archival ink will start to stain it otherwise, and I don't want it to be completely stained. It'll still work fine, but we don't obviously want... I like my stamps to look pretty, I'm not going to lie. So I'm going to put that one back in, and I'm going to pick one of these circles. I ummed and ahed about it for a while, and I decided on the one that had the slightly thicker line. So I'm just going to line that up around my sentiment and try and get that as centered as I can. And then again, just a case of using the same ink, and I'm just going to stamp that down. And I do a couple of goes of that as well. I think this is a really good technique to use if you are wanting to put a sentiment onto a slightly busier background. It would work on patterned papers as well, if you just want to put a sentiment on there and just make it a little bit darker. All I did was mount that onto a standard card blank. I did go around the edge with a black pen, and that was the finished card. The second one is just my monochrome one, so I used an embossing folder to get that lovely texture on there, and then I've cut the word hugs out of the Quinn's ABCs from Lawn Fawn. This cardstock, I didn't have any grey, so I actually did just use an ink pad that I had just to grey up my paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get this lined up where I want it. At this point, it doesn't really matter if it's at the right height on the paper, because what I'm trying to do is just get the spacing of the letters correct. So I tend to, if I'm wanting to put letters and them all to be nicely spaced out, I get some masking tape or some washi tape or some just any kind of low tack tape, and I just take a bit of the stick off because I don't want it to pull off any of the inking that I did on there. In hindsight, I did a bit too much. As you'll see, one of my letters falls off. I unstuck it a little bit too much. So this is me just trying to line it back up by eye. I use my grid mat to do that. So I have to redo the whole thing. It's very annoying. But I do want it to be at least relatively straight. So the trick is, if you line it up this way and pick them all up together, you can literally put the glue on the back of them and then treat them as one long sentiment rather than a bunch of different letters. And I'm just folding the edges of the tape up there just so it's a bit easier for me to pick it up and it's not getting stuck to my fingers, which is when the letter did come off as it was. So I'm just going to stick that down there. Bear with me while I do that. And then I can just take my T-ruler again, T-square, whichever way you want to call it, and use that just to get it straight, and then I can use my eye to get it centered. And then I'm going to pop it down. I'm going to give it a good press down. You can leave it longer, obviously until it's dry, as long as you know that none's escaped around the side. But if you peel it off gently, you should be fine. I am going to just give that an extra little shove down with my fingers, and then I usually do weight these things down with just an acrylic block, just to make sure it's really nice and firmly down there. While that is just setting, I'm going to quickly show you what I did with my final option. So this is the one that I only used 3 turns on, and I have this red heart that is actually left over from when I did one of my previous videos. I think it was the puffin video. So if you go back through my videos, you'll be able to see where I cut that out. So it's nice to be able to use up the scraps from that. So I am putting that down in the center at the top on there. And again, I am going to weight that one down as well, because I do firmly believe that you should always weight these things down so they don't get ruined. So this is the Alter New Hope set, and I've got the die for this, and I have cut the word hope 3 times out of some black cardstock that I've backed with this stick it. So it basically makes it into a sticker. So I've layered the 3 up just to give it a bit of extra dimension. And then I've also taken the sentiment from there, that you know how much I love you. So the sentiment will read, hope you know how much I love you. And I've just used some white embossing ink to put that onto some black cardstock, which will go underneath. And I've also covered it in my sparkle pen. It's a Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. Oh, try saying that 3 times fast. That I used just to give it a little bit of sparkle. It doesn't show very well on videos, unfortunately, the sparkle, but you can really see it in person. So I'm just going to line that up, and then once I'm happy with it, I'll give it a firm push down. Until you push it down, it will give you that wiggle room to move it around. And then I am going to use just some little foam squares for the sentiment, just to give that a bit of dimension as well. Bear with me. My hair gets everywhere, as is evidenced by the fact that it somehow got stuck underneath my foam pad. I have no idea how that happened. It just happens. How I have any hair left on my head is beyond me, but never mind. So I'm just going to take the backing off of those, and then I will pop those down onto my card base as well. I am not great at this. This is actually at double speed, people. This is how long it takes me to take these backing tabs off these. It is a labour of love. So whoever gets this card, if you watch the video, it was a labour of love just for this bit. So that is the last one. And then I'm just going to use my T-square again, just because I want to make sure it's straight, because it is a very bold sentiment. And if I don't have it really straight, it's going to be really evident once it's stood up. So that's that positioned nicely on there as well. And then I'm going to move that to one side and go back to my hugs. So I have got into a little bit of a habit, and I really like doing it. I am going to sparkle pen the H and the rest of the Uggs as well. I don't know why I just said the H. I'm going to sparkle pen up the letters just to give it a little bit of a shimmer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Ranger Glossy Accents, and I'm going to use those to basically turn those into cute little enamel, they'll look almost like little enamel stickers when I'm done. So I am going to very carefully apply a layer of my glossy accent across all of those letters, and then it will have to be put to the side to dry, because if I try and move it, they'll drip and they'll drop, and it just won't look as effective. They do take a little while to dry, but the effect is worth it. It just makes that sentiment pop, and it gives it a bit of extra detail and a bit of extra something, which I just really like. So bear with me while I do the S. And that's that done. So I'm going to pop that to the side, and then this is the finished cards coming up there. All I did with all of them was go around them with a black marker and then mount them onto a card blank. I hope you've enjoyed this little video, just to show you the different effects you can get with your cards, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye!